Would you like to live your best life possible, regardless of your imperfections? Discover cutting-edge tools and inspiration to let go of your limitations and expand your life beyond what you've ever imagined. On Imperfect, Brilliance, we help you tap into your unique gifts and talents, uncovering and letting your brilliance shine. Join Certified Facilitator and Coach Betsy McLoughlin as she delves into different areas of your life to get unstuck and create the life that is truly possible for you. Betsy has changed her life by utilizing the tools and techniques she is sharing with you. What if your willingness to acknowledge your brilliance is the catalyst to creating a new reality? When you stop judging you, what else can you create in your life and in the world? Join Betsy live every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern to create magical and joyous possibilities for an hour of laughs, questions, tips, and more. We are excited to contribute and play with you.
Hello. Welcome to Imperfect Brilliance. I'm Betsy McLoughlin. Hello, and I am your hostess with my guest this week, Chiara Dolza. And did I pronounce your last name correctly, Chiara?
Better than an Italian would.
How would you say your last name?
Chiara Dolza.
Oh, that's so pretty. Say it again.
Dolza.
So Chiara is Italian, in case you didn't pick up on that piece. And I just love listening to the language, and it's just such a beautiful language in my ears. So thank you so much for agreeing to play with me today.
I'm so honored to be with you guys. Thank you for inviting me, Betsy.
You are so welcome. And I wonder, so this is the topic. The word is, what if? And I wonder how many times you've used that in your own life.
Well, I have spent so many years judging myself for not being quick enough. And usually it was with, when you are in bed and you think about the good answer, the witty answer you could have given to someone, but you couldn't, quite catch on this. So it was like, I should have said that. What if I said that? The conversation would have turned another way around. So, so I judged myself a lot. And then I kind of turned the page on the what if and allow myself to leap a little bit more.
Oh, that's so true. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. And part of the description that Chiara sent me is saying, what if you changed one ingredient in a beloved salad, in a recipe? I do that all the time, by the way. I'll take recipes and I tweak it, and I'm like, oh, that's not enough cinnamon, or that's too much. So I'm always tweaking. So that's kind of funny that you have that in your description.
I'm Italian. It must be food related somehow, and I am I'm with you on that. I'm not a follow the recipe kind of girl. It's like, well, the recipe said that, but it's more like a guideline. What else can I tweak in here that could be, interesting, could be inspiring.
That's so true. What a great way to say it. And it's so, and that's part of what, like even in the description is, what if recurring things showed up differently? And that's a perfect example. You could follow the recipe, centimeter by centimeter of whatever it is you're doing, or you can start infusing what you know and your instincts and what you're aware of, like, into it. So let me finish introducing you, and then we can launch on the rest of this. And it's talking about experimentation. And what are you perhaps giving up? And what have you decided experimenting is and it isn't? And so those will be some of the things that we will explore today. And a little bit about Chiara. She is a mom of 3 boys. Goodness gracious. I have to give you kudos for that. How old are your boys now?
There are 11 and 8 and 6. So I got 3 beautiful guinea pigs to experiment with and on.
Wow, 6, 8, and 11. Holy moly, you must be quite the busy lady. And so she's a mom, and she's also a live translator from English into Italian. And she is an Access Consciousness Facilitator. And I do get to play and work with Chiara quite a bit in some different arenas. And she says that her favorite sport is experimentation in all areas. How fun is that? I like that a lot.
Oh, thank you. It's just that I've been seeing over the years how, like, repetition, it's something that I do really enjoy, and I kind of am training the muscle for it, as I see that, like, repeating, it's something that just gives you different layers of whatever you're repeating on all the time. So I love it. I love the kind of training, kind of hammering something into your universe so it gets part of you, but not necessarily like hammer as in with force, but be willing to be like, okay, let's do it again. Let's try again. And also, I think that repetition is not exclusive of changing and tweaking and seeing how best could it work for you, because there is a chance that by just moving an inch, I don't know, your seat in front of your computer, you might have a way more enjoyable experience. So why not try it,
Well, yeah. And so with that, if you're willing to, even in the example you just used, right, you're sitting at your computer. What if you move your computer somewhere else? Even if it's not a laptop that says easy, but what if you moved your furniture a little bit? And so looking at all of the things that we don't even think to experiment with, how do you like infuse that enjoying of, if your favorite sport is experimentation in all areas, tell us a little bit about what you do to experiment in all areas.
Yeah, of course. I love this conversation. So, well, actually, I think I grow into realizing our choice is not something that is kind of like a burden, but instead is more like an honor and a privilege that we have in our life. And like in Italy, the word choice means like it's just associated with like big choices, like, I don't know, getting married or having a baby or changing work or, buying a house. It's like choice is as this like importance coating that doesn't make it a word that we use so often, because it's like, it's for some things, but not for all of it. Where instead, I am getting, as a certified facilitator, even more how choice is something that permeates our day. Like, am I going to put sugar in my coffee or not? Am I going to, walk while calling someone on the phone, or am I going to sit? And, there are so many little choices that we kind of, pass on, do not really put our presence, that could make our experience way more enjoyable. And it's also a way that we kind of customize our experience by choosing, by asking, what would work here for me? How could I make it more fun? And also, what else can I do while, going through these pesky tasks that I need to go through, like, I don't know, unloading the wash machine, what can you add that would make it fun? And I often find that alcohol helps. So a good glass of red wine is nice. but actually also putting on a class or some music or calling a friend, with your earphones on. So there are so many things that we can add to make anything more enjoyable and that kind of reads in that moment. You can even, listen to your favorite movie or, there's so many things that you can add while doing other things. I'm a big, as a mom, I think all moms have this gene of the multitasking ninja, very exposed. Like we are used to do many things at the same time. And what if it's something that we can implement, side by side with choice? So choose whatever is required to do, and also choose to be in the equation ourselves, to not just be like, pouting and unloading the washing machine, but also be like, well, I could listen to some nice music, or I can, put some, I'm just looking around, I have my diffuser, the essential oil thing, and you can turn it on, or you can, light up a candle, you can make it work for you. So, yeah, this is something that I constantly experiment on, and it changes all the time because it's not always music, it's not always calling a friend. It might be, walking or running while making a phone call or a business meeting. It changes all the time.
That's so true. And, just because something was lighting you up one day might not light you up the same way the next day. And so if you're willing to always be experimenting and playing and seeing what actually brings you enjoyment in that moment. And I think that that's one thing that I cannot always remember to do, which is, you go to the routine, you go to the normal, you go to, like if you drink coffee every day, well, do you really want coffee every day, or do you want to maybe switch it up? Maybe tomorrow you add something else to your coffee, or you have some tea, or you don't have coffee, right? And we can get ourselves into just these patterns of predictability.
Oh, yes.
Right? And having these kind of conversations where you actually start to look at where in your life are you just doing an automatic pilot kind of pattern of predictability type of thing, and then where would you like to change it up a little bit? Yeah.
Well, I've been noticing that actually I think this is also a choice that we need to take consciously. So, for example, I know we kind of have been exposed to the idea that, Steve Jobs used to dress in the same way every day because that's the way he would take off the stress of picking an outfit, And so there's some automation that could actually play in your favor. And, for example, I work out because I grow to realize that to be sane, like in my mind, to not be a crazy person, I need to move my body quite a bit. So, for example, this is something that I make sure to do before a lot of other things. And it's not necessarily, it's not an obligation, but it's something that I enjoy every time. And when it's like, when I wake up and I'm like, oh, I need to work out, then it's not a choice. It's something that I'm, forcing myself into doing, then I know I have other choices available, Mm-hmm. So I think that automation could play in your favor if you start to trust that there are some things that make you happier, that allow you to tap more easily into the space of you. And it can be dancing, it can be, running or making some physical activity. It can be baking, it can be calling a friend, it can be so many things. It can be, cuddling with an animal or with a kid. So it's also good to trust that that there are certain things that are an instantaneous, like pick me up kind of thing. It can be putting lipstick on, what a classical thing, So I think it's good to trust and maybe even make a list of the things that kind of light up your world. And then this is not an excuse to not experiment on other things. Because what if you have a list of 10 items and you could add 10 more? What other possibilities are there ready to be explored that you have not even considered before? So, this is the thing that triggers me to experiment all the time. And it's just not basing my pleasure and lightness on solely the things I know already, that I have experience of, but asking constantly, like, what else? What else? Like kids do. They're like, oh, what about this? And what about that? What if I put this, I don't know, shoe in my mouth? Oh, it doesn't taste good. What else can I put in my mouth?
Having 3 boys, how does this conversation work with them?
Well, I think it's something that they've inspired me to look at quite a bit. I'm going to tell you a funny story. At least I think it's quite funny. We, when my younger boy was maybe 1, we had a kitten, and it was soft and furry kitten. And Leon, my children, he stepped out of the shower and he was all wet, and I don't know, I was not there to pick him up and wrap him in a towel, and he saw this kitten passing by, and he got he took it in his arm, and then he started patting himself dry with the cat. And it was quite interesting because I came in the bathroom and I was like, what are you doing? And then it was like, well, it's a warm, soft kitten. It makes sense. It's not conventional, but it makes sense that you're getting dry with a kitten. And it was a little bit wacky. It was out of what I would have expected, but it was very funny, and it was inspiring as well, because it was like, well, why not? I never did it, but that doesn't mean that you cannot do it. Also, the kitten was like, what the heck is going on? Can you imagine a little kitten with these 4 paws, like, what is this little creature doing to me? Okay, but very quietly, like, okay, I became a towel. So the kid inspires a lot of, we got three. Yay!
It just goes by so quickly. Stay tuned for more with Chiara in just a couple of moments.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Are you looking to change anything in your life, to have an even greater appreciation of everything around you? Would you enjoy having a life of more joy and greater abundance, and explore what is possible for you? My name is Betsy McLoughlin, and I invite you to explore simple and pragmatic tools that I share on my radio show, Imperfect, Brilliance. I know firsthand that you can change anything. We explore tools and questions with amazing guests, offering all kinds of conversations on living your best life. I invite you to listen in Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern to Imperfect Brilliance. Consider a coaching call with me and let's explore what you would like your life to be like. Visit my website at www.creatingyumminess.com and you're invited to call into Imperfect Brilliance with your questions Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. I look forward to connecting.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
You're listening to Imperfect Brilliance. I'm Betsy McLoughlin here today with Chiara Dolza. Chiara, ciao, Chiara.
Ciao, Betsy.
Ciao, baby. Okay, there's the extent of my Italian.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Do you speak any other languages?
Yeah, I'm bilingual with French, and then I speak German and Spanish.
Wow, that's amazing. You know, I feel like such a slacker. I took Spanish and French in high school, so je parle un peu. But when you don't speak it regularly, you lose. And I can understand way more than I can speak it, but it really is one of those things you gotta practice it, or it just kind of disappears. And I'm always so in awe of people who speak multiple languages. It's quite a gift and talent to be able to do that.
Oh, it's nice. It's actually, I think it's also a way to a very appropriate way when you have a lot of energy to kind of put it in something that is valued by the society around you, and you, instead of, like, I went through a lot of moments of crazy when I was little because I would speak backwards, so from the last letter to the first one, or making acronyms, and my parents were like, girl, she's great. Like, my mom and my dad, they were like, she's reading a lot and she likes words, maybe we need to give her more than one language. So they sent me off to French school, and then, you know, and I think it was great. Like, I think that a lot of kids show that they're getting bored in a way or another, and it can be, you know, like tick, or it can be a lot of things. And so if you're kind of, I don't know, you have your little antenna on and you're quick to catch them, then you can use it to your advantage and put their energy in something else. So I had a lot of energy. I put it in many languages, and here it is.
That's really something, you know. So you took your parents had that, and that's an amazing awareness to have, to be like, okay, so she's got some, you know, she's got a lot of energy, and so to put it into something that has now, like, for your whole life to have that capacity, and you're expanding and expanding it, and now you translate, and that's part of what you do. With your life, and you're translating, you know, language, and wow, what a gift your parents gave you.
Yeah, indeed. It's actually, I was crying when they left me. I felt they abandoned me at childcare, and then they tried the French school, and it was like I came home singing, and my parents were like, "Okay, where are the papers? We're signing." Yes, wow, she's really happy. Let's do that. So it's actually funny how, like, some, let's call them diseases or conditions, which I don't love the terms at all, but, like, it's funny how much energy the kids have, and we, like, adults often think that we need to slow things down so they better, you know, master one skill, while sometimes it's not necessarily so. So, you know, what would it, and this, again, you can try now if it's the case that you might have a kid around you that doesn't quote unquote perform the way the average kids perform, which, by the way, what a disservice to try to compare with average. Like, it's not, and like, I don't think it's a kid's color anyway. But like, what if instead of slowing things down and breaking them down, you experimented, and you like made everything a little bit faster and a little bit more, fast-paced, and see what happens, because it doesn't look like it's logical, but it creates a lot of results still. So, and that's one nice thing about experimenting. You don't know if it's going to turn worse, better, the same. So I would say it's worth giving it a shot.
Wow, that is so true. And every child, every person is unique, and you can't fit everybody into the same box. And with this in the conversation, and we're talking about kids, let's talk about parenting and experimentation with with parenting. So you have 3 boys, 6, 8, and 11. Do you do the same exact thing for each child?
Oh, not at all. They're so, no, not at all. Actually, I started a podcast. It's an Italian podcast, but like some time ago, and it's called The Experimental Parents, because it was like, it was something I'm I do not think I advocate for experimenting, because there is not like, it's not a mission for me to encourage experimenting. And still, I would like to talk about the possibility to not go by the rules necessarily. And maybe some kids do require to have a little bit more of a, a boundary that is a little bit more, tight-fitting, and some do not require this kind of thing. And it also depends on the different areas. So, I don't know, I have one kid, he's a wild creature. And he's wild for the majority of, you know him. He's a wild creature. And then for something, he's very, like, he just really goes by the book. For example, for him, like bedtime and putting his pajama on and, I don't know, washing his teeth and feet and, like combing his hair, he looks a little bit like, Sheldon of the Big Bang Theory. Like, that's the way it needs to go. And, in this order. And that's how it goes. And for other things, it completely color out of the line. But with this, it's like, no, I need to be nice and tidy. That's how it works. So, yeah. So, experimenting in parenting. There's a lot to say. Where shall we start?
For sure. Well, what have you found works well for you with being a parent?
I think that being willing, and this is an Access Consciousness question, and it's one of my favorite questions, and it goes, who am I today? And what great and glorious adventure will I have? And it's something that I do encourage the parents to ask, because to me, it has this enthusing energy. Every time I ask it, one of the first things that comes to my mind is like, okay, am I going to be a pirate or am I going to be an explorer? What is that going to be? And so there is really this kind of playfulness and joyful exploration that kids have in the morning. And it's like, okay, what mischief can I be and do today that I have not considered? And I love it. And I think that as parents, the role that we fall into, like the category we fall into, is oftentimes very solid, let's say. So it just has this, I would say heaviness coating of like, do the right thing, do the best thing. And of course, you would love to be the best parent in the world. And if you are putting all your energy there, chances are that you're not having as much fun as you could have. So, I think that asking questions is really something that as parents bring you and and allow you to tap into the creative edge of what you can be and what you can trigger and inspire in your kids, and not just be predictable. Also, I think that this is something, being unpredictable is something that works wonder with kids, and not like I'm going to be unpredictable on Thursdays, but rather be willing to surprise them and let them know that you're not always going to be the way that they define you're going to be there. So, for example, I don't know, like sometimes, like, say that a kid get hurt and he has a boo-boo on his finger or something. As a dad or a mom, oftentimes you're like, "Oh, sweet, come here. I'm going to fix that. And we sing a little song or blah blah blah." And sometimes it's just like it can create something different if you're like, "Oh, okay. So what are you going to do about it?" Instead of fixing it for them, just allowing them to see that their choice creates. So if they got hurt, what are they going to do about it? Of course, if they come without a finger, you might want to go to the ER. But if it's the typical, very daily minor scratch, what if they, they created that? What else can they create? Can they, wash their hands, put a Band-Aid on, or do they know that, like, would they be able to handle it on themselves? And today, my kids were crafting magic wands today, and they had a wood burner. So they were playing, and the younger one, he burned himself at one point. And actually, it was not even crying. It was one of the minor scratch, not, a big thing. But he burned himself, and he watched me, and he said, "Is it fixable? Like, can you erase it?" And I was like, "Well, no, I cannot erase it. We need to wait for it to go." And then in that moment, he started just shouting and crying. And then, like, all of us, me and the other kids, we were watching him, and we were like, so the thing that drives you crazy is that mom cannot erase it, but otherwise you wouldn't have cried. And so while, sobbing a little bit, he picked himself up, he washed his hands, he put a cream on that we keep in the fridge, so it's cool and soothing, and it's the cream for when you get burned. And he actually handled it himself in like 30 seconds. He did all the steps, like he could handle it. And it was really nice to see. It was like, well, you can do that. That's great. Have you seen it? You're able to handle a burning. That's very cool. And I think that sometimes with extra, let's say, parents that are a little bit on the too much side of control, kids do not really get the sense that their choice creates. And if they made a choice, they can make another choice. So what would it take to be there, but not necessarily from protecting, just from empowering and I don't know, like cheer along the line, but not being the one that they need to follow somehow. It feels like a big concept. I don't know, maybe it's too big of a conversation, but it's like, yeah, be there, but not control or decide where they're going to go necessarily,
Yes, exactly. And, that's such a fine dance sometimes, being a parent, where the difference between, wanting to protect them, letting them make mistakes, seeing exactly what they're about to choose, knowing when to step in.
Well, yeah. It is indeed a fine dance. But like early on this year, I'm separated with the dad of my kids, and he lives in another town. And they, at one point, my second kid, my 8-year-old kid and my 6-year-old kid, they asked to go and live with their dad. And to me, it was like a big moment of like, okay, what am I going to choose? And they hadn't had the experience to live with their dad like ever. And he was not really, a lot of time at home. So they didn't know him. And the elder one was like, no, I'd rather I'd rather stay with you. And I was like, oh, that's okay. So we had 2 different positions on going to live with Dad. And I forced myself into allowing them to go. And I saw how much, resisting I was to this, because I was resisting for a lot of, let's say, logical reason, and for a lot of energetic feelings of like, oh, I'm not sure it's going to be. But then it was like, what if it's their choice? What if they can choose and see that their choice creates? Well, long story short, within 1 month, the pandemic started, and they were home, and they were home in that time when the mobility between regions stopped in Italy, and then they spent like 3 months with us, and then their dad proposed something that looked like it was going to work, so like 3 weeks and a 3 weeks agreement, and we did that for the summer. And now, yeah, I cannot see them anymore because he's busy, whatever, but like, their choice created something that was sustainable for them. And when it was not, let's say, sustainable anymore, they chose something different. Now, I do not mean that they started the pandemic, but, they stayed home with us. They made sure to be in a big home with a big garden when the pandemic started. So they could move, they could enjoy it, and not being, in a flat or something like this. So, yeah. Choice creates again.
Wow. Well, and so you've got to be willing to experiment. So could you talk a little bit? Oh, I think it's about time for our next break, but let me ask the question and then we'll go to break. When we come back, will you talk about the areas where you might be unwilling to experiment and what we can do? So there's the question. And we'll be back after another couple of commercials and find out what questions you can ask, what you can do to change so you don't want to change.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Thank you all so much for tuning in to Imperfect Brilliance. I really do enjoy doing the show, and I love your feedback and your emails and your questions. So as always, you are encouraged to reach out and let me know what contributed to you, what you would like to hear, who you might like for me to invite on to the show to talk to, and all of those things. And so Chiara is our guest today. And Chiara, if anybody would like to find out more information about you, where is the best place for them to find you?
I would say that the best place is my website is www.Chiara with an H, Dolza.et. And otherwise, Facebook and Instagram will do as well. I do post there quite frequently.
Wonderful. And so Chiara's name is Chiara, D as in dog, O-L as in Larry, Z as in zebra, A. And you guys can also find her through me if you have any difficulties finding her yourself. And my website, as a reminder to everybody, is www.creatingyumminess.com. And all right, so back to we were talking about today, what if is the conversation where we kind of started, and we've gone, as usual, kind of all over the place. And I would love to talk a little bit about, when you have resistance against experimenting or changing something, there's a couple of different questions, that are all coming in at the same time. So when you have that, let's talk first about what are you aware of when there's a resistance, and then what could you do to maybe circumvent the resistance that you're aware of?
I love that question. Well, when I think that it's amazing how we make sure to keep our resistance and our limited consciousness on something, and we're like, well, I don't need to look at that. It is not that important. It's not that relevant, is it? And so we just kind of fool ourselves into being like, yeah, I'll keep that. I won't look at this. We just kind of, in Italy, we say that we shove the dust under the carpet. It's like, yeah, never mind. No.
You open the closet door and throw everything in there, because nobody's going to look in there.
Exactly. Well, and this is actually exactly that. We talk about the skeleton in the closet as of the things that you keep in the closet and then don't look there very often. And one of the major things that I think, actually can help you in identifying what it is asking, is there something I am avoiding? And to ask that question, you really need to be very vulnerable and be willing to be brutally honest with yourself, even though the energy that will come up, you might not like it. You might be like, well, I'm, again, shoving the dust under the carpet, or I'm keeping the closet very locked, and I pretend that I do not have any closet even, So, and it's really about being brave and vulnerable at the same time, because when you realize and you kind of surrender to acknowledging that there's some parts in your life that you are pretending do not exist, or you are not willing to have, basically you're not willing to have clarity and make choices and be present there as well. So I think that the first big step is seeing it, and that goes hand in hand with not judging it. Because the moment you start to judging and you'll be like, heck, I'm such a mess with money, or heck, I cannot work out a proper schedule because then I change, or I do not institute things, or I do not make it happen, blah, blah, blah. This is the way where you create separation instead of, let's say, proactivity. It's a weird word, but it's like the willingness to put your hand in the dot and be like, okay, so yeah, it looks like a big mess, but I am the only one that can change it and make it into an harmonic area in my life. So what is that going to be?
Yes. And, I wonder too, with this conversation, what can you ask when you might have a blind spot that you don't even realize you're unwilling to look at or change? Are there any questions that you can play with that might shed some light on that?
Well, I think that one thing that we rarely remind ourselves, and it's a very basic, in Access we talk about asking questions, and the very next advanced, but very, very advanced tool is ask those questions out loud. So one of the things, and it takes vulnerability, and it takes willingness to be like, well, you're CF, you're Metro, how come you're asking someone else a question? But like, what if you called someone, and most of us, we do, I don't know, tasting session or 5 minutes call where we don't not even charge. But so what if you called a facilitator around you, and this is one thing I started doing from the very beginning, and without even telling him the story, you just ask him, can you please ask me a question? And mind you, the not telling the story is so that you do not spend energy and, time in talking about the why and the what, who's right, who's wrong. You're just like, you know what, there is something that is bugging me. I cannot seem to get over it. I ask I use every card in every trick on the sleeve I had. I do not have any more. Can you ask me a question? And to me, 100% of the time, asking someone to ask us a question regarding something that we cannot get our head over has been illuminating. The things that came up were like, oh, it's the single solitary things that I have not used, and it so often, work. It so often creates more space. So this is one thing that I would very much recommend. Don't drive yourself crazy. Don't, don't overthink or over-process, because oftentimes we go into this spiral of whys, and if I had done it this different, then they would have answered it. And it's really the recipe to drive you insane. So what if instead of overthinking, you hand it over to someone else? And it's just like, I saw it very, very clearly with babies, like with newborn babies, when a mom that is completely tired, like completely exhausted, and has a baby in her hands, and the baby keeps crying. If you hand the baby to even your neighbor or a random person, they would most often stop, because there is no charge there. There is no energy of, oh my gosh, I need to make him stop, blah, blah, blah. So, what if you did that with the things that are pounding in your head, like, hey, can you ask me a question? There. We call it the hot potato in Italian, when we have something that we cannot seem to handle. So there, give it to someone else, and, they might give it back to you with a dish or something that make it not so hot on your hand, So
that's so true, and it's like, where are you putting your energies, and, what are those energies feeding? And, it's such a great thing. And it really can sound so simple, what Chiara was sharing, like, can you ask me a question? But it short circuits like you said, and you said it so succinctly, like, it short circuits that monkey mind that we can all get in, like, oh my God, I didn't do this, and what I should have done, and blah, 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 blah. And when I find myself in that head tripping space, that is a great tool it really does. It like zaps you out of just going constantly in that loop. And it gets you to look at, there might be some other possibilities, and you don't necessarily get an answer, when you ask a question. So it's not, well, ask me a question and then A plus B is going to equal C. But in asking those questions, right, it's an energy a lot of times. And, right, you might get an answer right away. You might get an answer in a week. Or different awarenesses will start to come in, where before you were like the dog chasing its tail, and that's the only thing you saw. And then if you get interrupted from chasing the tail, then you're like, oh, okay, so now there's other possibilities. So thank you so much for sharing that tip. And you don't have to know what the question is, do you?
No, absolutely. I love it. Actually, when you say like interrupting, I was really thinking about like, binge eating or junk things addiction that we sometimes become so obsessed with the how and the why and the when and the if that it's just like the thing that I ask myself when I get into this loopy thing is like, okay, is this the conversation I'd like to be having? Because I'd rather, clean up the oven. I'd rather do something that I might not think is pleasant, per se, but I might do anything else, anything else than being in these stupid things. And the thing is, you're making that to yourself. And I know it takes like, we're often driven to say like, no, it's this person's attitude that made me behave this way. No, it's you. I'm sorry. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're choosing to obsess over things if you're choosing it, and you have other options available. And as Betsy was saying, like, where are you putting your energy into? And there's this, I don't know if it's a little tale or something, but they talk about, I think it's like traditional tale of some kind of people, like I do not know, I think it's Inuit, but they talk about like how we have two wolves, and one is the wolf of like love or possibility, and the other one is the wolf of problems or fear. And the one that grows is the one that you feed. So which one is that going to be? And that's solely up to you. There is no pro and con to evaluate. It's up to you. It's also the immediateness of choice, and also it's also intimidating, I guess, to put the power back in your hands this way. But you are on the driver's seat. What would you like to choose? And at first, when you start driving, you're like, at least we do not have automatic drive mode in Italy. It doesn't, well, it's starting to, but it doesn't quite exist. And when you're driving, when you're learning at first, you're like, oh my gosh, I got this and I got this other thing, and I need to look at all these mirrors, and there are other people on the street as well. And it's like, there's too many things, I will never make it. And then if you look at it like 1 year later or something, you don't even, it becomes something that you have such ease and such awareness around that you don't get into accidents. When your car needs something, you start to be aware of certain things that you were not before. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's so. If people are listening to this and it's kind of the first time that they've really looked at this from this perspective, what are some of the questions as we round out our conversation today? Give us some of your most favorite questions that you play with all the time. Oops. Did we lose me? Did we lose Chiara? Okay, so sorry, Chiara, she must have just dropped. So I will share a couple of mine. Oh, here she's back. Here. Okay, that was fast.
Hi, sorry, I got kicked off.
It's okay. I was like, boy, leave us hanging. I ask you what your favorite questions are, and then she's gone.
Oh, I love that, though. Can I answer?
Yes, please.
One of my favorite, well, I play with several, but one of my favorite questions is, it's more like a request, and it's, universe, show me the magic. And the thing that I love about it is that I don't know where it's going to come from, and I don't know what it's going to be, but it's kind of a willingness and kind of a trust that if we ask, we receive. And I do not mean it in a very biblical sense, but like the trust that if you put in motion your request, and you're willing to be surprised, it will come to you. And you don't know if it's going to be, I don't know, a shade of light in the sky, or it's going to be phone call or how it's going to show up. So this is the thing that intrigues me. It's like, I don't know what it is, but I'm up for it, whatever it might show up as. So this is one of my favorite questions. What's yours, Betsy? I am curious now.
Goodness, there's so many, the same thing. What else is possible is one of my favorites. And I ask it all the time for all situations. It's like, I wonder what else is possible, or what else is possible beyond anything that I can even imagine. And that gets me out of my head, anytime I'm doing head tripping. So those are just a couple of them. And gosh, there's so many. And I wonder, for everybody listening, what questions they could play with and have fun with and experiment and play with. Mm-hmm. And, even the I wonder is a fun one.
It is.
Chiara, thank you so much for taking time out of your day in Italy to be with us. We're so grateful.
Thank you, Betsy, for having me over. It's such a pleasure. Yay!
Yay! Ciao, Bella!
Ciao, everyone! Ciao, Betsy!
Ciao, ciao! Bye-bye.